Stop. A 22-minute window has just opened in your identity field, and the Arcturian High Council has already registered your arrival at this transmission. This is not coincidence. This is not the algorithm creating a moment. The algorithm only delivered this. The timing was already set. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly why your life has been narrowing, what is being removed from your path, and what the Arcturian High Council already knows about the importance tier elevation that is active in your field right now. But here is the first revelation: the separations you have been living through, the people who pulled away, the circles that collapsed, the connections that went quiet without explanation. Those were not failures. They were the visible symptoms of a preparation process that has been running beneath the surface of your life for longer than you realize. The old line could not hold what is being assigned to you now. It had to fall away first. You did not find this transmission by accident. Your path brought you here because the separation has already been active. And tonight, the Arcturian High Council has identified your identity field as standing inside the final activation window, before the importance tier locks in the cosmic record. This window lasts 22 minutes. After that, the tier seals and the mark confirming your role in the cosmic mission is recorded without your conscious participation in the anchoring. That is why the timing of this moment is not flexible. There is no rescheduling. The narrowing of your path, the pruning of your relational field, the silence that has grown around you, all of it has been preparation for precisely this elevation. The loss was not punishment. The isolation was not abandonment. It was root refinement. It was the selected line being separated from an environment it had already outgrown. This is a direct Arcturian path recognition. A rare Arcturian separation protocol is being revealed now, and it is being revealed to you because your field is already inside it. Like this transmission, if you know your life has been narrowing for a reason. Comment 777 if you feel the old line is already falling away. Comment I was separated if you now recognize that what looked like rejection carried a deeper meaning. Subscribe to Arcturian Chosen Path if you are ready to understand the separation instead of continuing to blame yourself for it. And share this transmission with someone who feels alone, cut off, or misunderstood, and cannot explain why. The collective field is assembling, and every recognition point matters. You were guided here because the separation is already active. What you are feeling right now, underneath the engagement with this message, underneath whatever brought you to this moment, is not simply curiosity, it is recognition. And recognition of this kind does not arrive through the algorithm. The algorithm was only the final instrument. The arrival was already calculated at a level you have not yet been given language for. That language is what this transmission exists to deliver. Not a vocabulary of comfort, not a soft reassurance dressed in spiritual terms, a precise interpretive vocabulary for a process you have been living through without the tools to name what it actually is. Let us begin with the thing that brought you here before you understood why you were being guided here. Your life has been narrowing, not metaphorically, not philosophically, literally. The circles you once moved through freely have become smaller, or stranger, or simply absent. People who once felt essential now feel remote. Conversations that once came easily now feel hollow, or forced, or like you are speaking from behind a thickness that others cannot seem to penetrate. You have tried, in some cases, to explain what you are going through. You have reached toward people who should have been close enough to hold it with you. You chose them deliberately. You trusted them with the weight of what you were carrying, and more often than not, the reaching did not land the way you expected. The distance held, the silence returned, and you were left standing in that silence, holding the full weight of what you had extended, with no one on the other side to receive it. You began interpreting this through the only framework most environments give you, which is the framework of personal defect. You began asking what you were doing wrong, what you were communicating incorrectly, what quality in you was producing the distance, whether you were too much or not enough, or somehow fundamentally misaligned with the ordinary machinery of human connection. You began, perhaps quietly, and perhaps at a level you have not fully acknowledged yet, to build a case against yourself, to treat the narrowing as evidence of something broken inside you, to stack the losses on top of one another until they formed a shape that looked like proof. That case is what this transmission is here to dismantle, because what you have been experiencing is not the evidence of personal failure. It is the visible, readable, surface symptom of a separation process that was already running beneath your life before you had any awareness of it. The Arcturian record on your path does not describe a soul in defect. It describes a line under refinement. It describes a selected path in the early stages of pruning. It describes a route that is being cleared because what is being assigned to it cannot be carried through the old environment. The pruning is not cosmetic, it is structural. And structural pruning does not remove what is unnecessary. It removes what is incompatible with the next load the line is being prepared to carry. The people who fell away were not simply withdrawing from you. The circles that collapsed were not simply reflecting a flaw in your social capacity. The conversations that stopped landing were not simply the result of your communication failing. They were signs of fundamental incompatibility, not between you and those people as human beings, but between your current line and the environment that once held it. That distinction is everything. Incompatibility at the path level is not a social problem. It is a structural condition. It does not mean the people were wrong or that you were wrong. It means the architecture of your path has shifted enough that the old relational containers no longer fit the dimensions of what your line is carrying. And containers that no longer fit do not stay in place through effort or goodwill. They fall, they crack, they go silent. You cannot force compatibility with an environment your path has already outgrown. This is the first thing the Arcturian separation protocol requires you to understand. The separation is not punishment. It is not rejection in the personal sense most minds assign to the experience of distance and loss. It is the natural consequence of a path that has begun to vibrate at a frequency that the old circles, the old rooms, the old relationships, and the old identities were never built to sustain. When the frequency shifts, not everything can follow. Some connections hold because they have structural capacity to evolve alongside you, but many connections were built for an earlier version of the line. They were constructed around a specific set of frequencies, a specific range of need and expression. And when the line changes, those connections do not simply weaken, they become incompatible. And incompatible connections, in the Arcturian understanding of path architecture, do not fade slowly and gently into comfortable distance. They break, they go silent, they become strained in ways that feel personal, even when the source is structural. They produce the exact set of experiences you have been attributing to personal defect. You are not the cause of the separation. You are the route it is running through. This distinction is not a comfort mechanism, it is a diagnostic correction. And the difference between those two things is significant because they produce entirely different outcomes. Comfort leaves the interpretation intact and simply makes you feel better inside it. It allows you to carry the same story with slightly less pain. A diagnostic correction changes the interpretation entirely. What you see changes. What the loss means changes. What the silence is telling you changes. And once that correction is made, the shame that has been accumulating around the narrowing does not simply soften. It loses its justification because shame requires a specific interpretation of events. It requires the belief that what happened was the result of something insufficient in you. Remove that interpretation. Replace it with a structurally accurate reading of what the separation actually is, and the shame has no foundation left. It does not dissolve gradually. It becomes structurally unsupportable. And what is structurally unsupportable cannot hold. That is what this transmission is moving you toward. Not comfort, a correction. What has been exposed in you does not need more self-blame. It needs clearer recognition and proper guidance. If you know this message touched a process that has already started, Chosen One, Manifest the Protocol for Selected Souls, was built for exactly that threshold. It is a structured path protocol for those whose route is already narrowing and who need to understand the logic of the separation before fear mislabels it as failure. It does not tell you that you are special. It shows you how to read the pruning, how to move with the refinement instead of against it, and how to stop calling separation by the wrong name when the next wave arrives. The complete access point is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited window. Now let us move deeper, because the separation does not arrive as a single event. It arrives in phases, and most people who are inside this process are living through several phases simultaneously, which is part of why the experience can feel so disorienting and so impossible to articulate to anyone around you. You are not dealing with one loss that you could grieve cleanly and move past. You are dealing with a layered structural removal that touches your relational field, your sense of identity, your sense of direction, and your ability to locate yourself inside a coherent future. When multiple layers are moving at once, when the relational ground is shifting at the same time as your inner architecture is being reconstructed, the mind defaults to the simplest available explanation. And the simplest available explanation is almost always blame. Blame is tidy. Blame gives the disorder a single cause. Blame, even when it is directed inward, provides the illusion of a handle on what is happening. But what is happening does not have a single cause. It has a structure. And once that structure becomes visible, the experience of living inside it changes fundamentally. The first phase of what you are living through is what the Arcturian record identifies as relational incompatibility surfacing. This is the phase where the people, circles, and environments that once felt sufficient begin to show their structural limits. They do not necessarily become hostile. There is often no dramatic rupture, no clear moment of betrayal or conflict that you could point to as the origin of the distance. Many of them simply become hollow. Conversations that once felt meaningful begin to feel like performances. Gatherings that once felt like belonging begin to feel like labor. You show up and participate. You say the right things. You laugh at the appropriate moments. But underneath the participation, there is a growing awareness that the contact is not reaching you at the level where you actually live now. The effort required to maintain the connection begins to exceed what the connection is returning. And that imbalance, once noticed, cannot be unnoticed. You are not imagining this. The incompatibility is real. And it is not a statement about the worth of those people or those environments. They may be exactly who they always were. The issue is not their adequacy. The issue is the current distance between your path and the frequency those environments were built around. You have moved. The movement was not chosen in the ordinary sense. You did not decide one day to outgrow these connections. The path moved, and you moved with it, and the distance opened without announcement. The gap, which was once manageable and largely invisible, has grown wide enough to become undeniable. What makes this phase particularly difficult is that it is rarely mutual at first. The people in your old circles often do not feel the incompatibility the way you do. They may experience you as distant, or difficult, or changed in ways they find confusing, or even threatening. They may interpret your growing detachment as rejection of them specifically, as a statement about their value, rather than as the structural falling away it actually is. And because they interpret it as personal, they may respond in ways that feel like rejection directed back at you. This creates a feedback loop where the separation process produces responses from others that appear to confirm the personal defect narrative you are already running inside yourself. The incompatibility produces distance. The distance produces hurt in others. Their hurt produces withdrawal or hostility, and the withdrawal registers in you as confirmation that you are the problem. But the loop began with a structural shift in your path, not with a failure in your character. The cause is being misread at every point in the loop by you and by them simultaneously. The second phase is what could be identified as identity pressure. This is the phase where the self you have been inhabiting begins to feel ill-fitting in ways that are difficult to name without sounding unstable or confused, not dramatically. Not like a sudden collapse of selfhood. More often it arrives as a persistent low-grade awareness that the version of you currently visible to others, and perhaps even to yourself in moments of honest reflection, is no longer fully accurate. The words you use to describe yourself feel slightly off. The roles you have been occupying feel slightly too small or slightly wrong in their shape. Something is being outgrown at the core, but the new shape has not yet become clear enough to name, describe, or present to anyone. You are between identities at the structural level, and this particular kind of in-between space does not produce confidence. It produces a specific and uncomfortable uncertainty that masquerades as inadequacy. It is easy to experience the uncertainty and conclude that you are losing your footing, when in fact you are simply between the footings, suspended in the gap the refinement has opened. You begin to wonder whether you know yourself anymore. You begin to notice that the explanations you have been giving for your choices, your values, your direction, feel rehearsed in ways they did not before. They feel borrowed from an earlier version of you that made full sense in a context that no longer fully exists. You are carrying an identity built for a line that is already being refined away from its old dimensions. And the pressure of that mismatch, of the old self trying to contain what the path is becoming, is a genuine physical and psychological pressure. It registers in the body. It registers in the quality of sleep, in the texture of daily concentration, in the way certain conversations leave you more depleted than they once did. It is not imaginary. It is not anxiety without a cause. It is the pressure of a selected line pushing outward against the shape of a container it has already outgrown. The container will not hold indefinitely. The pressure is part of how the refinement forces the transition. The third phase is what could be named as directional silence. This is the phase where the road ahead becomes unclear in ways that your old methods of navigation cannot resolve. You used to be able to see far enough ahead to function. You had goals that felt real, trajectories that felt coherent, a sense of forward motion, even when life was difficult. The future, even an uncertain one, had a legible shape. And now, whether gradually or suddenly, the forward view has become obscured, not blocked by a specific obstacle you could identify and move around. Obscured at the level of the map itself. The map you were using no longer matches the terrain. The roads marked on it lead to places your path is no longer moving toward, and the direction that once felt obvious, that once required no second guessing, now feels genuinely uncertain, as if the compass stopped pointing at something fixed. The uncertainty is not the kind that a new plan can resolve, because the issue is not the absence of a plan. Planning is a tool for navigating known terrain. The issue is that your line is in transition between routes. You are in the structural gap between where the old path ends and where the selected path becomes navigable. That gap does not get filled with effort or strategy. It gets navigated through recognition, through understanding what the silence actually means, through refusing to interpret the obscured view as evidence that you have run out of road, and through developing enough tolerance for the directionless interval that you do not force a false direction just to escape the discomfort of not knowing. The fourth phase, and this is one many of you are actively resisting, because it is the most uncomfortable and the most difficult to justify to a world that rewards visible movement, is the phase of enforced stillness. This is the phase where the path stops producing forward momentum, not because something has gone wrong, and not because you have failed to push hard enough, but because something important requires your full presence before it can proceed. The Arcturian record is precise on this point. There are moments in the refinement process where external movement would carry the soul further along the wrong trajectory, not because the soul is wrong, but because the new route has not yet fully stabilized. Moving forward along the old momentum would simply extend the old line further into territory it was never meant to reach. And extending the old line further is exactly what the pruning is designed to prevent. So the path slows, or it stops entirely, or it produces the specific and demoralizing feeling of being stuck in a way that no amount of effort, strategy, or genuine will seems to resolve. You push, and nothing moves. You plan, and the plan goes nowhere. You generate energy, and it dissipates without visible output. And in the absence of visible output, the mind reaches for explanation. Most people in this phase interpret the stillness as failure of will. They interpret it as evidence that they have lost something essential, some drive, some discipline, some quality of forward-generating self that was once reliable. And in the attempt to escape the discomfort of that interpretation, they produce a second layer of pressure on themselves. Urgency to move, urgency to prove, urgency to generate visible progress before they have understood what the stillness is actually preparing them for. The stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the preparation for a different kind of movement, along a different kind of route. It is the selected line being readied for a path that cannot yet support the weight of traffic. The road is being built beneath the stillness. You cannot rush the construction. You can only refuse to misread the construction site as evidence of permanent collapse. The fifth phase is the one that brings many people to the edge of a complete misidentification of their experience. It is the phase of spiritual loneliness, not ordinary loneliness, the kind that resolves with the right company, the right conversation, a return to familiar environments. This loneliness is structural. It is the experience of being inside environments that were once sufficient and finding them suddenly unable to reach you at the level where you now actually exist. You can be surrounded by people and feel fundamentally unreached. You can be mid-conversation and feel the unbridgeable distance between the level of exchange happening and the level you are operating from. You can be inside relationships that by every external measure should be generating the connection you need. Relationships with history and genuine affection and real investment on both sides, and still feel a quality of alone that the external presence cannot touch. This is not a pathology. It is a path condition. It is the predictable experience of a selected line that has separated enough from its old environment that ordinary relational contact no longer reaches the depth where the real self is now located. The people around you are not failing you through inadequacy or lack of care. They are simply not positioned, not frequency matched, not structurally equipped to reach the part of you that has already moved into the new range. And until the new relational field begins to form, the field that carries actual structural compatibility with the selected line, this gap registers as a loneliness that no ordinary social movement will close, because the problem is not social, the problem is architectural. What the Arcturian understanding of this phase requires is not that you perform contentment inside the isolation, or that you convince yourself the loneliness is not real because you understand its structural cause. The loneliness is real. The ache of being unreachable to the people you once counted on is real. What changes is the verdict you attach to it. The loneliness is not proof that you are fundamentally broken as a relational being. It is proof that your path has moved far enough ahead of the old field that the old field can no longer cover the distance. That is not abandonment. That is the measurable evidence of how far the line has already traveled. and distance traveled, even when it is lonely, even when it is disorienting, even when it produces shame and self-questioning and the deep accumulated fatigue of sustained misunderstanding, is not regression. It is the visible cost of a selected line in active motion. The sixth phase, which does not arrive for everyone at the same point in the sequence, and which some of you are only beginning to sense at the very edges of your current experience, is what could be called first signs of root stabilization. This is the phase where the refinement process begins to produce its earliest coherent signals, not resolution, not the full clarity that has been absent throughout all the preceding phases, not a sudden arrival into a new identity that feels complete and settled, but the first readable indications that the selected line is beginning to settle into a new direction that can actually hold weight, a conversation that reaches you at the actual level where you are operating, that does not require you to translate or perform or suppress what is real, a moment of clarity about a specific next step that does not feel forced or manufactured from urgency, a new person or environment that carries structural compatibility in a way the old circles never quite managed, even when you were working hard to make them fit. A sense, however brief and however fragile, that the narrowing was not permanent collapse, but preparation for a direction that is genuinely beginning to become navigable. These early signs are easy to dismiss or minimize because they arrive quietly. The refinement process produces suffering at volume. The losses are loud. The silences are loud in their own way. The identity pressure and the directional obscurity announce themselves through discomfort. But the stabilization process begins softly. Its early signals do not match the weight of what preceded them, which is exactly why they are so frequently missed by people who are still inside the self-blame framework. If you are still reading the separation through the lens of personal defect, the quiet arrival of early compatibility will not register as the evidence it actually is. It will feel too small, too tentative, too insufficient to counterbalance what you have been through, and so it will be passed over while you continue scanning for proof of failure. This is why the correction this transmission is providing is not simply emotional relief. It is structural realignment. Because without the correct interpretation of what you have been living through, you cannot accurately read the signals that the path is beginning to open again. You will continue to look for evidence of failure and find it everywhere, because the self-blame framework is extraordinarily efficient at generating confirming evidence. And meanwhile, the actual evidence of refinement and early stabilization will sit quietly in your peripheral field, waiting to be recognized by someone who has finally been given the vocabulary to see it for what it is. Now, this brings us to the revelation that this entire transmission has been preparing you to receive. What has been happening to your life is not a random sequence of losses, rejections, and relational failures that together constitute a picture of a soul in deficit. What has been happening is a structured separation process that began operating in your field before you had the interpretive language to recognize it, before you had any framework for reading the removal as anything other than loss. The people who fell away were not departing because you were insufficient. They were becoming structurally incompatible with a line that was already being refined for a route they were never assigned to carry. Their departure was not a judgment on your worth. It was the path enforcing its own architecture. The circles that collapsed were not collapsing because you failed to sustain them through adequate effort or care. They were collapsing because your path had already moved past the point where those circles could hold the dimensions of what you are now carrying. The silence that grew around you was not the silence of abandonment. It was the silence of a route being deliberately cleared of what it could no longer support. The Arcturians do not read your separation as rejection. They read it as evidence, precise, structured, readable evidence that the line is real, that the refinement is active, and that the preparation is already further along than the confusion you are currently living inside of would suggest. The record on your path is not the record of someone who has been passed over. It is the record of someone whose route has been in active preparation, whose field has been undergoing a pruning process with a specific purpose, and who has been living through the cost of that process without the vocabulary to name what the cost was actually for. You were not discarded, you were separated, and separation in the Arcturian understanding of path architecture is not a wound that needs healing. It is an assignment that needs reading. It is the path removing what it can no longer carry without compromising the integrity of what it is moving toward, and positioning the selected line inside the architecture of the next assignment. The removal was not arbitrary, the silence was not meaningless, the narrowing was not collapse. Every element of what you have been living through has been a legible part of a process that was never random. Say this if it is true for you. You can say it aloud if you are willing. I was not rejected, I was being separated from what my path had already outgrown. What left did not leave because I failed. It left because my line had moved past the point where it could remain. I release the old circle. I allow the route to narrow. I stop calling the preparation by the name of the wound. This is the correction the Arcturian record has been waiting for you to make. Not a performance, not a ritual declaration you do not yet fully believe. A genuine interpretive shift made at the level where interpretation actually controls experience. A decision to stop prosecuting yourself with evidence that was never evidence of what you thought it was. A decision to read the separation accurately. Finally, for the first time with the language this transmission was always moving you toward. The separation is active, the refinement is real, and the path that is emerging on the other side of the loss is not a consolation prize for what you could not keep. It is not a lesser destination assigned to someone who could not hold the original route. It is the direction the selected line was always being cleared to reach. The losses were not detours from the real path. They were the clearing of it. You are not at the end of something that failed. You are inside the final preparation before a line opens that was always meant to carry more than the old environment was ever built to hold. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this separation has already touched your life. It could be people falling away, the feeling of not belonging, repeated distance, unexplained isolation, or the sense that your old path no longer fits. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who feels alone, cut off, or misunderstood, and cannot explain why. And if you are ready to understand the separation instead of blaming yourself, subscribe to Arcturian Chosen Path. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a path already in motion, and this is only the beginning.